And we're back. Welcome in the studio today. We've got David from Fizzy. Welcome, David.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you actually back in the studio. A different studio this time, but having you back on Northern Lights.
Bigger and better.
Yeah. Got some good stuff going on.
We keep growing.
Yeah. It's just like the plants. That's what we got to do.
Absolutely. Hey, David, it's good to see you. Tell us a little bit about your 2024 so far and like what are you looking forward to?
Sure. So 2024 is going to be a nice, fun year for us because we have a whole year now full of beverage sales data. And so one of the things that's been really cool, a lot of fun opportunities is going around actually the country now and talking about this a little bit. So Minnesota was this awesome mecca of a market for THC beverages for the past year, hemp-derived beverages. And now, a lot of these other states are starting to catch on and they're very curious about what we've been able to glean over the past year. So very excited to see what 2024 has in store for us and what more we learn.
For sure. And so, it's January right now. We're recording on the 22nd. Typically, it's a slow time for liquor stores, but we've seen the co-option of THC products inside liquor stores. How has dry January sort of changed and shifted in your eyes? Like, what are some insights that you've gathered throughout this month?
Yeah, it's been very interesting. So on the marketing side of things, this was the first time that I saw a lot of concentrated pushes on dry January campaigns. One of the most notable is probably dry Canuary. Very clever. But I can attest to that. And basically what we've seen so far this month is just normally, I would say, for every beverage sale, there's probably 2 to 3 edible sales. But in January, we're probably more 60-40, meaning the amount of beverages people are starting to pick up in place of alcoholic beverages or even in place of edibles has really been pretty insane to see. So I don't have the final numbers yet, but I think just one brand, I think with just Can alone, they probably moved close to 5,000 cans so far just this month, which is insane.
Amazing. And to give people a little bit more background, you are a part of Fizzy THC, but you also work for Hemp House and the No Coast Cannabis brand. So when you're talking about your experiences, like you're talking through like kind of the Hemp House lens, or are you able to see more than that?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So I have a unique position in being able to not only sell my own products in Fizzy, but selling everybody else's. So at Hemp House, we have over 100 brands, 700 SKUs, and my job is to sell all of them. So it's really interesting to go in and meet these brands, work with these brands, figure out what makes them unique, who their segment is, who they should be getting their products in front of. And so you can't just give the same stuff to everybody and say, hey, just have at it. You really have to figure out who is the right audience, the right segment for these types of products. If it's a low dose product, it's a different demographic than a 10 milligram option. So I think the segmentation piece and finding those different key audiences and kind of placing the right products, the right brands in front of the right segments has been huge for us, but also just super eye-opening. The different types of demographics, different types of people that are using these products, and just how wide this range is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been cool sort of seeing some of these, trends that have existed in the alcohol industry for a while start guiding people a bit towards cannabis. I've had a number of friends that throughout January are doing dry January, but like California sober style.
Yeah.
So they're doing a little bit of cannabis and are thinking, hey, what's that beverage that I can replace? Even if maybe they're a smoker, they're looking for something new to try. And
sure,
pretty cool force of legalization.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people question whether or not it counts. If you have a cannabis beverage, are you truly abiding by the spirit of dry January? My answer is yes. Like, this whole industry is based on loopholes. So we might as well embrace that. But at the same time, too, we're also seeing a lot of very interesting trends. First and foremost, the beer, wine, liquor industry, we're seeing dips in the amount of consumers, especially the young generation. So we have that dip that goes along with the rise in the NA market. And so a lot of young people are really starting to turn to cannabis, but also gravitate away from booze, which is a perfect and ripe opportunity for these THC beverages. And so dry January is a perfect testament to that. People choose to embrace dry January to be healthier, to be better, a new version of themselves. And now they have this brand new option. And what's so fascinating about all this is I would say these THC beverages are the first true psychoactive difference to something like a beer, like a wine, like a liquor. It makes you feel something. And so I think CBD beverages and that wave had a lot of promise, but it's that psychoactive component that can make somebody really like feel something and relax. That's been so popular.
You speak on feel, right? And it's a good point that David brings up, but also what I continue to hear from waitresses, from people at shops like Dabbler Depot or Hemp House is when people are consuming after 1, 2, 3, there's less overconsumption is what I'm hearing. And it's more so because of the feel that cannabis provides. I think it puts you more in touch with your overall body and the feelings versus alcohol. And I'm not an expert in the effects of alcohol from a science standpoint, but you feel more disillusioned maybe. And cannabis, you're feeling more in touch with yourself potentially. Like, it's interesting how people say, yeah, after like 2, I'm good, or after 3, I'm good. Whereas like a bar environment, it's a little different with alcohol, I would say.
Yeah. No, I would definitely agree with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So coming into 2024, tell us a little bit about some of the trends that you see coming up in this year.
Yeah, so one of the things that's been the most exciting about being able to review a year's worth of data and, again, connecting with all these brands is you kind of see where they're going, a lot of the trends that are happening. And so 2023 was the year of the seltzer, and 2024 is a year of basically the differentiation. So, I mean, anybody who can find a co-packer at this point and get a license can make a drink. So the barrier to entry is so low. What really has become so powerful these days is figuring out what your differentiator is. Is it your flavors? Is it having other ingredients? Is it other cannabinoids? Is it terpene profiles? Is it having a juice, a soda? There's so many different types of drinks and innovation that can happen, and that's really what we're starting to see more of. It's, I get people that come in the store every day, hey, I have this new drink, and in the past it's always been, here's a new seltzer, here's a new brewery did a seltzer, and now it's, hey, we have a prebiotic soda option. And it's just kind of blowing my mind how we're kind of seeing all these popular CPG or alcoholic types of drinks getting a THC twist to them. And so as far as trends go, I hope I see more of that, kind of more of this functional beverage piece. And so you brought up a good point. One of the biggest things that I notice and see brands trying to figure out is, where do these drinks live in someone's everyday life? Because ultimately, to get traction, you need to be replacing something. Is it replacing booze? Is it replacing liquor? Is it a joint? Either way, people need to be able to imagine when and where to have these things. And as these different types of drinks are coming out, people are realizing there's different situations where they might turn to a THC drink. So, for example, a year ago, if someone were to say, hey, are you going to have a THC drink first thing in the morning? No, I got stuff to do, I got places to be, etc. But now I can go and have a THC cold brew. I can put a fizzy in with a Red Bull or something, Celsius, whatever. You can basically engineer the time and place where you want to have your own, as Steve kind of put it, not a disassociation, but it's just a different lens that gets put in front of you. You're not looking at things the same way when you have mind-altering compounds. And so that can be subtle, that can be very intense, but there's different moments when they come into play. And so I think what's been really interesting is seeing all these different energy drinks pop up, again, like coffees, sodas, teas, stuff before bed. And so I really think the creativity I've seen is what I'm going to see more of in 2024, because, the more unique you can be, the more of a moat that you build around your brand and the products you make, like the longer you'll stick around. And so it's been very interesting to see some of these brands kind of reposition. And the one that really stands out to me the most is probably Wonder. If you look at Find Wonder's website now, it's not just we're a THC drink, we're adaptogens and cannabis in a can. And a year ago, that would have been kind of questionable. And now we're starting to see people really lean into things like that, because adaptogens, while there may be some legality issues there, it makes you feel a certain way. And so if you can have a THC beverage in the morning, and then you have one in the afternoon to pick yourself back up, and then you have them before bed to pass out, all of a sudden, then it's kind of ingrained into your life. And that's when you start to buy more, repeat more. People will notice, they'll ask you about it. And that's what really builds up this category. And so I think that's what I'm looking forward to more of in 2024 is what kind of innovation and what kind of situations do we find these beverages falling into.
Wow.
It's a great answer.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And it's one that, as you were talking, I was like, wow, I have been buying those cold brew coffees with THC, or like I have been buying the products that sort of have the time of day that you generally would consume them. And even if, maybe a year ago, I also would be consuming cannabis in the morning.
Right.
Now I sort of have that product that like is distinctly sort of built into the schedule of
The habit.
No, you have your cup of coffee with THC in it. That's pretty cool.
And because I could go into specific examples too, but for the sake of time and just the idea that you're talking about, it's the full spectrum effect reimagined.
Mm-hmm.
So in the same way that I didn't enjoy the straight CBD tincture, that I preferred it with CBG or CBN, I think what we're starting to see is like, I'll speak personally, like I don't like a straight THC product. I prefer it to have the CBG, the CBN or whatever. And so beyond just the cannabinoids, the functional mushrooms, the adaptogens, that is the full spectrum effect reimagined. It's just a more well-rounded product, so it's going to speak to more consumers, and the consumer's going to feel a more balanced effect, even if that does include a psychoactive feeling.
Agreed. And I think the other thing too is those moments, like when you have it. So it's not just how you feel, but you want to craft how you feel at a certain time. And so one of the things that you're talking about trends, this isn't necessarily a trend, but a prediction I have is we'll probably start to see these beverages be widely available in arenas. So, for instance, if you go to a game, right now we're all probably sitting here thinking, I would much rather pay $15 for a THC seltzer than a beer. And so
a shitty beer.
There's that opportunity. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And if it doesn't happen in Minnesota first, I do know there are other states where that reality is becoming even closer. But there's also innovation in the space that even if they don't sell those drinks there, you can still make your own.
Yeah, let's talk about a workaround here.
Sure. So we had some fun with this. One of the things that's really interesting when you start a brand is you start off with an idea where you think the value props your product will resonate with an audience. And so for us, we thought for Fizzies, hey, you can make your own THC beverage anywhere. Awesome. But the biggest value prop isn't about making your own drink per se. It's actually more about being able to do it anywhere. And so the fun that we had was basically taking these through TSA's airport, walking through clear, crossing our fingers, and then ultimately, realizing that we were able to get these in and go have one of these drinks on a flight. And that was step one.
Clear.
And then from there, it was, we can take these to Vikings games. We can take these to Wild games. We can take these to the Twins games. And tonight we'll be taking these to the Timberwolves games.
Hey, clear to that.
Big season. Wow. And so instead of paying $15 for a beer, I can't advertise this, but you could still get your beer and make it a little bit more fun in theory.
Yeah.
Not legally advising that, but
Absolutely not.
I have heard individuals who say that that's a nice, fun feeling to have at a sporting event in front of a lot of people. And so we wanted to capture that and do more of that. And that's really where these little handy keychains.
Yeah, and so each tablet of a fizzy dissolvable beverage is
2.5 milligrams of THC. Yeah.
And I don't know if it's placebo or not, but it immediately puts a smile on my face. The first sip. Yeah.
Sparkling.
Well, what like a wonderful sort of dosage where really anyone would be able to do this. If you drop a couple in your beverage, if that's your thing, but otherwise dropping one in there, suddenly you got 2.5 milligrams just ready to go.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
And I think when we were making this back where there was the 50 milligram cap, so I never really had to go beyond that. But now with the 10 milligram cap, I've always thought it's funny that people will just add these to already existing THC seltzers and beef them up a little bit and have some fun. So, I don't personally do that too often, but it definitely works.
That's cool. So what we're looking at here is a transformative case. So it takes it from the classic Advil bottle or the classic gummy packaging, and it puts it into a transformative case that allows you to get away like it's on your keychain. So whether it's TSA or the the yellow security guards at the games, so it's very innovative but you're not reinventing the wheel.
It's so simple.
It's so simple. Yeah.
But it's funny because I got this inspiration from actually a customer who talked about her experience at a Vikings game, and they don't drink anymore, and so they wanted something. And that got me curious. I started asking more customers to send me places where they would try these, and the answers I got were absolutely ridiculous. So I had somebody who was at a funeral who popped 2 or 3 of these to deal with all the stress of a funeral. And so that's what I mean, though. That's kind of the beauty of it. You can take it anywhere. It can be good, bad, hopefully not the ugly. But I thought that was just such an interesting it's one of the most interesting phenomena in marketing is when you actually go talk to people who use your products. Like you learn so much more than you possibly could on the internet or behind your laptop. And so I can't recommend that enough. Like you'll just your experience, you'll learn so much more about what your products could be if you start talking to people who actually use them on a regular basis.
So this is a flask.
Yeah,
effectively.
yeah.
Basically.
I love this.
Yeah.
Well, now you got me thinking, like, I got to go see a movie next week. Like,
Oh yeah.
well, I could bring this along with me.
The new Godzilla.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Shout out. And then, lastly, Dave, you're heading to Florida soon. You want to touch on that?
Yeah. So LinkedIn's a big world, but basically what we started doing over the past year was releasing some of the data that we found from Hemp House, all the THC beverage sales, and it caught wind from a few people who are big players in the industry. And so ultimately got invited down to Miami at the start of the month, end of the month, so February 1st, to go give a presentation on what we've been able to learn about THC beverages for the past year. So that'll be with Delta Emerald Ventures. It's called Canna DataCon. I'll be joining a lot of pretty prominent people in the space. So it's exciting times. And I don't know if any other Minnesota folk are going, but I would love to have some companions down in South Beach.
Yeah, we'll get this podcast out as soon as we can. So hopefully you can find some friends down there. But
absolutely,
it's been great getting to know you this past year, these last 12 months, and we're impressed with the work you're doing and the innovation you're providing this industry. It's a lot of fun, and I think you're doing a great job online of just sharing more information. And we were talking a little bit offline, like we still don't know how big this industry really is from a hemp-derived standpoint. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately what we're trying to get to. And so the big point with teaming up with people like this, with people who are venture-backed or whatever, is that the amount of different networking opportunities, the amount of different smart people you can get in one room to really crack not a simple problem, but a simple question, which is how big is this industry? There's papers out there. Whitney Economics did a great job of figuring out how big the hemp market is in total. But again, that's not just drinks; it's the entire edible space, et cetera. But it's crazy that it's as big as the marijuana market. And so, if we can start to slice and dice and figure out how big the beverage opportunity is, to your point, that's when alcohol distributors, booze distributors, that's when the stuff truly becomes ubiquitous across the country and not just here in our favorite state. So the more we can learn and really quantify the opportunity for these brands, I think that's going to open a lot of doors and kind of kick the doors off the hinges, so to speak.
Cool.
I'm so excited to see where the hemp industry goes. I mean, I'm excited for all of legalization, but to see sort of where our little home brewed industry is able to grow and expand in the future, it's only up from here.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much, David.
Yeah, thank you.